Welcome to Mrs. True Crime. Today's video is an in-depth look into the Colt family. It's a tale of trauma and secrets. If you are triggered by anything dealing with child abuse, feel free to click off this video. Perhaps check out my gaming channel, Retell Me Games, for some lighthearted content. If not, I'm Nicole. Let's get started. Flowers in the Attic is the first in a series of Gothic novels by V.C. Andrews that details the life of Kathy Dallianger. The book journeys through Kathy's family and the consequences and situations she finds herself in. I haven't actually read the book. I know. Instead of actually seeing the Lifetime film about it, along with all of its sequels. The story, at least from the film's view, is a showcase of betrayal, abuse, and neglect. The biggest turning points in the film, and I can only assume in the novel as well, is the relationship between Kathy and her brother Christopher. During their years growing up, they embark on a relationship that is both passionate and harmful. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they're drawn to each other. Authors James Maddock and Noel Larson place incest into four motive categories: affection-based, occurring in a home that lacks a nurturing and affectionate environment; erotic-based, the family's core stems from sexual promiscuousness; aggression-based, the angrier the perpetrator becomes, the more intense the sexual desire for their victim is; and rage-based, the perpetrator is hostile and maybe overly sadistic. They may find pleasure in victimizing their victim. Along with these motivations, there are also different types of incestuous relationships. There is child incestuous abuse, which is sexual relationships between an adult family member and a child. This is the most common form of incest, with the adult being a male and the child being a female. One study found that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 10 boys had experienced sexual abuse. The second type of relationship is sibling-sibling incest and child-on-child sexual abuse. This occurs usually between an older sibling dominating or demonstrating power over a younger sibling. Thirdly, avunculant marriage, which is marriage between an uncle, aunt, and a niece-nephew, biological relatives, or those related by marriage. In 2014, a New York judge ruled in favor of a marriage between 27-year-old Vu Trong and his 19-year-old niece, Hyun Negan. And lastly, cousin relationships. According to cousincouples.com, 26 states allow first cousins to marry, with the rate of marriage being approximately 1 in 1,000. As taboo or harmful a topic, incest continues to exist in modern times, and for over 4 generations in New South Wales, Australia, the Colt family practiced it.
While working on a farm in Griffith, Charlie Colt, which is a court-ordered fake name, is arrested by police. As the 45-year-old is walked to his car, he's made aware of the many charges he faces, including child sex offences. And he is just one of 8 people from the same family arrested across 3 states.
The Colt's family history of sexual deviance traces back to around 1948, when their mother June was born from an incestuous relationship in New Zealand. Years later, in 1966, she marries Timothy Colt, and together they have 7 children: Rhonda, Betty, Sherry, Frank, Charlie, Paula, and Martha. The family relocated in the 1970s to Australia and lived in various locations in South Australia, Victoria, where June died in 2001, Western Australia, where Tim died in 2009, and finally a farm at Berroa in New South Wales. Evading attention, the Colt children grew and produced 25 children of their own, along with grandchildren. The young Colts were barely seen while they stayed on the farm, and when they were, neighbors took notice of their dirty clothes and thin physique. The farm in which the family lived on wasn't in the best of conditions. Instead of a large home to house the multi-generational family, they occupied tents, caravans, and sheds along the property. The first caravan was dirty with mud, dirt, digger butts, and other trash on the floor. The children's beds were filthy, and the cooking facilities wasn't in standard working condition. The second caravan was as dirty as the first, with food discarded and 2 broken windows. The large shed seemed to contain the kitchen area, which was dirty as well. The refrigerator contained rotten food, and there was a small kangaroo sleeping on one of the beds nearby. Along with this were exposed electricity wires, large bags of trash, and exposed chainsaws near entrances to the caravans. From 2010 to 2012, 7 reports from the Department of Family and Community Services were filed against the family for child neglect, refusal to seek medical attention, failure to attend school, and failure to maintain a hygienic and appropriate domestic living environment. The family was ordered to clean and fix the issues, and while a follow-up visit observed a few changes, it wasn't significant enough to stay that way. During 2 visits in early July 2012, the Director General concluded that the children would remain in risk of harm if they remained on the farm, and so on July 18, 2012, the children were removed. As cut and dry as it all seemed, there was much more darker things afoot on the Colt farm besides hazardous living conditions. Though the elders argued the children were homeschooled, whenever child services made a visit, the elders would send the children to school. And despite their infrequent school history, the children were memorable. In fact, a teacher at the nearby school couldn't forget when she overheard a conversation between a Colt child on the playground saying, "My sister is pregnant, and we don't know which of my brothers is the father." Though siblings Charlie, Betty, Rhonda, and Martha would deny any incestuous wrongdoing, genetic testing would suggest otherwise. Of the 12 children removed, 11 had parents who were related. Despite the children being removed from the home in 2012, the investigation into sexual misconduct took child abuse squad leader Peter Yeomans 6 years to develop. With phone taps, child interviews, and DNA, the mystery of the Colt family history would soon come to light. It started, it would appear, with Betty Colt. Betty was the matriarch of the family and ringleader, as some reports claim. The investigation recorded phone calls between her and her 15-year-old son Bobby, where she comments that his voice was sexy and that she could listen to it all night. When her children were taken from the property, she reportedly phoned Bobby and said, "I ain't giving up until I get every one of you home. Pack your bags and I'll be there. They can't stop you. If they put a hand on you, charge them with assault." Betty also tried to recruit her 14-year-old son Brian into leaving foster care and living with her again. Her plans were cut short, and she was arrested in 2014 for attempted kidnapping and was planned to be deported to New Zealand. She was never deported and served a short sentence in the Vila Wood Detention Center and was released in November 2015. "I can assure you, Betty Colt is a very nice person," says Betty's detention mate turned best friend, who requested to remain anonymous in reports. After Betty's release, she lived in a farm several hours north of Adeline with her 34-year-old daughter Raylan and 2 other young male relatives. Betty is the mother of 13 children. Raylan, now 34, is the eldest and had only one child, Kimberly, who is now a teenager. Kimberly was one of the 12 taken from the farm. Raylan testified that Kimberly's father was a man named Sven, a backpacker from Switzerland or Sweden, who she saw a few times before becoming pregnant. She states she told him about the pregnancy and he beat her and left, resulting in Kimberly being born 6 weeks early due to trauma. Yet xenogenetic testing, as well as Kimberly's own testimonial, will confirm that Kimberly's parents are related, more specifically, that Kimberly and Raylan share the same father. At the time of her assessment with child services, Kimberly placed her hand inside her aunt's skirt. She said she was tied to a tree and had sex with her uncles, as well as oral sex with them. She told her mother, who didn't do anything about either incident. Kimberly threatened to cut her caseworker's fingers off. She was underweight, unable to brush her teeth, use toilet paper, or comb her hair. Though Raylan agreed that she took too long in some matters involving Kimberly, she denies any allegations of incest and believes her daughter to be a liar. Betty's next children are Tammy, now 31, and Derek Colt, now 29, who lived away from the farm and was found in Victoria in 2013 living in squalor. The 2 were engaged in a 3-year relationship and had 3 children together, Fiona, Anna, and Sally. Sally, who had a thick short neck and low-set ears, died from Zellweger syndrome, a rare genetic disorder associated with incest. Sally's tests showed that 32% of her genome was arranged in long stretches of homozygosity, strongly suggesting her parents were closely related. Fiona and Anna were removed from her custody. Tammy said that she was routinely raped by her brothers and that Betty encouraged the behavior. She went on to say that pregnancies and miscarriages were common around the farm and that Betty recently told her that Derek was her half-brother, and prior to this, Tammy wasn't aware. Derek, meanwhile, was one of 4 of Tammy's brothers who repeatedly raped her and over time had fallen in love with. He threatened to kill Tammy if he couldn't have her. Bobby, now 19, Billy, now 18, and Brian, now 16, were among the 5 of Betty's youngest to be removed from the farm. Bobby lacked basic hygiene, had fungal infections on his toenails, had a walking impairment, and had kindergarten education. Billy had a skin condition, fungal infections, and mild hearing loss, and a moderate learning disability. Brian also had fungal infections and gum disease. He lacked basic hygiene as well as decaying teeth, and he functioned on a 3rd grade level. Dwayne, now 13, and Carmen, now 12, were the remaining 2 removed. Dwayne's teeth were decayed. He was illiterate and couldn't recognize numbers. He had sex with his sisters and other female relatives. He confessed he was told to never state that his father was also his grandfather. Carmen was extremely underweight, couldn't brush her teeth, and had never seen toilet paper. In interviews, she stated that her father was her uncle, Charlie Colt. The remaining children were Colin, who regularly sexually abused his young relatives, Jane and Petra, who were sexually abused by their uncles and brothers, and Joe, who along with abusing his female relatives also had sex with Kimberly. Ben Colt died when he was 2 months old. The patriarch was Charlie Colt, who was claimed to have slept regularly with his sister Martha and raped the younger girls on the farm. Charlie is said to be the father of 4 of Martha's children based on cytogenetic testing and the children's own statements. In September 2015, a 2-year Apprehended Violence Order, AVO, was taken against Martha, preventing her from contacting her daughters Nadia, then age 10, and Ruth, then age 8. During the raid of 2012, Nadia and Ruth were severely malnourished, with Nadia having black feet and Ruth exhibiting dysmorphic features. Neither was aware what toilet paper was or how to brush their teeth. Both had difficulty speaking, with Ruth also being hard of hearing. Nadia recalled that her parents photographed her naked, while Ruth added that their brothers regularly raped both of them. Since leaving their family's farm, the girls have gained weight and improved their speech and hygiene. Ruth and Nadia weren't the only children of Martha's taken away, though. Albert, now 19, had a fungal infection, hearing impairment, and frequently wet his bed. He told his caretakers that him and his brothers tortured animals and mutilated their genitals. Jed, now 18, had tongue and feet infections, learning difficulties, hearing issues, and poor hygiene. Carl, now 16, was underweight with fungal infections and mild hearing impairments. In August 2012, he threatened to stab staff with pencils and cut their throats. All 3 had difficulty speaking and engaged in sexual acts with their sisters. Martha's daughter Donna died when she was 2 weeks old. Elsewhere, Charlie Colt left for Europe after police issued a court order to take his DNA. He was arrested months later at the airport. He, much like his siblings, denied the allegations against him. "I think it's disgusting, the allegations they're making. Both my parents have passed away, and I've been asked to clear the family name to prove all these allegations are false," he said. The final child to be removed from the home came from Rhonda Colt. Rhonda had 6 children. Cliff, who was present at the 2012 farm raid, Tracy and Penny, who were regularly sexually abused by their uncles, Alice, Timothy, who regularly sexually assaulted his female relatives, and lastly, Cindy, the youngest child at 5 to be removed from the home. Cytogenetic testing proved that Cindy's parents were not related. Her hygiene was maintained, and though she couldn't dress herself, it's important to note her age. Still, she was raped by her cousins and tried to kiss her male caretakers on the lips and was defiant when told that was inappropriate. As of April 2018, Raylan, Betty, Derek, Rhonda, Cliff, Frank, Martha, and Charlie have been arrested and charged with incest, child sex abuse, and aggravated assault. The men face multiple counts of sexual intercourse with a child under 10, incest, indecent assault, and sexual intercourse with a child aged between 10 and 14. The women were charged for perjury. Each member has denied bail. Their next court date is scheduled for June 2018. Psychologists usually use a 3-step trauma method to assist incest survivors through their healing. 1. Safety. The patient feels protected. 2. Remembrance. Memories of problematic and traumatic experiences are expressed and worked through. And 3. Reintegration. The patient has taken situations of their past and has helped them move forward. Still, treatment and assistance in managing child abuse takes time, and the effects can last forever. For example, the victim may lose trust with others based on their past experiences, or have a lowered sense of self-worth. These children were brought into this world thinking their sexual abuse was normal. Though some spoke up and fought against their relatives, most accepted it because their parents did. It's been 6 years since they were taken out of their homes, but it's only now that justice has finally begun. I'm Mrs. True Crime, and remember to be kind, be loud, be aware. For more information about the Colt family, why not check out some of these awesome links? And if you like what you saw and heard today, why not drop a like and a comment? Maybe subscribe while you're here? I make new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and you don't want to miss what's in store.